My friends, the Philadelphia Eagles walked into MetLife Stadium on Thursday night knowing that a win was supposed to be a formality. The Giants were rebuilding, banged up, and starting a rookie quarterback. Yet what unfolded was one of the most embarrassing losses in recent memory. A 34-17 dismantling that left every fan in Philadelphia asking the same painful question: how did this happen? The first thing that jumps off the page isn't just the score, it's the way the Eagles got manhandled. They didn't just lose, they got bullied. From the first snap, the Giants owned the line of scrimmage. Jackson Dart, a rookie making just his third NFL start, looked calm, composed, and completely unbothered. He finished 17 of 25 for 195 yards and a touchdown, while Cam Skattebo gashed the defense for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns, running through would-be tacklers like they weren't even there. Wan'Dale Robinson torched the secondary for 84 yards, and it felt like the Eagles had no answers. On offense, on defense, or on the sideline. This was the kind of loss that strips away all excuses. You could see it in the faces of the players. Flat, frustrated, defeated. The Eagles were 1 for 9 on third down, rushed for just 73 yards, and gave up 3 sacks. They lost the turnover battle 2-0, surrendered 172 yards on the ground, and watched the Giants convert 11 of 16 third downs. That's not just bad football. That's lifeless football. And here's the part that really stings. This isn't supposed to be who the Philadelphia Eagles are. This team was built to be tough, physical, unrelenting, a roster that wins at the line of scrimmage, imposes its will, and grinds opponents down over 4 quarters. But on Thursday night, they looked like the soft team. They looked like the one that didn't want contact. Nick Sirianni preaches the little things: effort, discipline, execution. But when you watch what happened in New York, those principles were nowhere to be found. Missed tackles, lazy pursuit, poor communication, undisciplined penalties. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And while Sirianni isn't calling plays, the accountability starts with him. The Eagles are 4-2, but it's a fragile 4-2, built on moments of luck and flashes of talent rather than sustained dominance. What's even more troubling is that the issues aren't new. The offense looks predictable. The defense lacks energy. The offensive line, once the bedrock of this franchise, suddenly looks human. The secondary, thin after key off-season departures, was exposed again and again. And then there's Jalen Hurts. Hurts had one of his worst games as a pro. He missed open throws that could have changed everything, including a wide-open DeVonta Smith on what should have been an 89-yard touchdown. Instead of seizing momentum, Hurts overthrew him. The Eagles punted, and the Giants marched right down the field for another score. Later, he missed another read that left A.J. Brown completely uncovered downfield, opting for a risky throw to the sideline that resulted in a backbreaking interception.
It's not about effort with Hurts. Nobody questions his work ethic or leadership. But right now, his confidence looks shaken, his reads are late, and his timing is off. When you combine that with unimaginative play calling from offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo, you get an offense that feels completely lost. They've gone nearly 3 straight games without putting together a complete second half. Just a painful series of 3-and-outs, turnovers, and empty drives that kill any rhythm before it can begin. And what makes it so frustrating for fans is that we've seen this movie before. This is starting to look and feel eerily similar to the collapse of 2023, a team that started hot, only to unravel when it mattered most. Back then, it was easy to blame injuries, new coordinators, or fatigue. But now, those excuses don't hold up. This is a veteran group, one that returned most of its core from a championship run, and yet they look disjointed, undisciplined, and unprepared. When Lane Johnson spoke after the game, his honesty cut deep. "We're just not very good right now," he said. And he's right. For a team loaded with talent at nearly every position, the Eagles don't do anything particularly well at the moment. They can't run the ball consistently. They can't sustain drives. They can't make in-game adjustments. And when adversity hits, they don't respond with fire, they shrink. That's not the identity of the Philadelphia Eagles. Not the team that went to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. Not the team that prided itself on toughness and grit. Somewhere along the way, that edge disappeared. Maybe it's complacency. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's roster construction. But whatever it is, it's eating away at the heart of this team. And things aren't getting easier. Up next are the Minnesota Vikings, on the road, with Carson Wentz waiting for his revenge game. The crowd will be loud, the environment hostile, and the margin for error microscopic. The Eagles have to find themselves fast. Because right now, the NFC East, which looked locked up just 2 weeks ago, is suddenly wide open. The Giants are energized, Washington is improving, and Dallas looks like a complete team. So now, the question has to be asked, can the Eagles fix this before it's too late? Because if they don't, this season, the one that was supposed to cement their dynasty run, could start spiraling out of control in a hurry. When a team built to dominate suddenly looks lost, it forces you to ask the harder questions, not just about execution, but about leadership, identity, and direction. The Philadelphia Eagles were supposed to be past this phase. They'd survived coaching changes, roster shuffles, and high expectations before. But this feels different. This feels like a team that doesn't quite know who it is anymore. And the more you dig into it, the more you realize how deep the cracks go. Start with Nick Sirianni. He's a motivator, a culture builder, the kind of coach who connects with players and gets them to play hard. But he's not a schematic savant. He's not Andy Reid. He's not Kyle Shanahan. He's a CEO-style coach who needs his coordinators to be exceptional. And right now, that's not the case. Kevin Patullo, in his first season as offensive coordinator, is clearly struggling. The offense has no rhythm, no creativity, and no sense of flow. It's predictable. Defenses know what's coming before the ball is even snapped. Screens are rare. Motion is minimal. RPOs, once the bread and butter of Jalen Hurts' success, have all but disappeared. Everything feels static, like a unit running on autopilot with no one at the controls. The numbers tell the story. 17th in the league in points per game, 29th in total yards, 28th in yards per play, 27th in third down conversions. That's not just below expectations, that's near the bottom of the league. This isn't what a roster featuring Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Saquon Barkley should look like. And yet, that's where we are. Barkley, to his credit, still looks explosive. The problem isn't him, it's the blocking in front of him. His yards before contact have dropped from nearly 4 last year to just over 1 this season. That's a massive fall off, and it points directly to a line that's regressed. Injuries have played a role. Landon Dickerson hasn't been healthy, Cam Jurgens hasn't been sharp since his offseason surgery, and Jordan Mailata's performance has dipped. Even Lane Johnson has looked mortal, battling through nagging issues. Without that dominant front, everything else collapses. The run game loses punch. Hurts faces constant pressure. Play action doesn't work. And with Patullo's limited creativity, the offense becomes a sitting target. Defenses know they can rush Hurts, clog the middle, and wait for the mistakes, because they're coming. Defensively, the issues are just as glaring. The secondary is a mess. Letting Isaiah Rodgers walk in the offseason has turned into a costly mistake. He's thriving in Minnesota under Brian Flores, while the Eagles are left with Adoree Jackson and Khalil Ringo, one struggling veteran and one raw, inconsistent youngster. Together, they've given up chunk plays, missed tackles, and failed to contain even average receivers. Against the Giants, it was embarrassing. Cam Scatterbo ran through arm tackles like they weren't there. Wan'Dale Robinson made the corners look like practice squad players. The communication in the secondary was non-existent. For a defense once known for its swagger and toughness, this version looks timid, hesitant to hit, afraid to commit. And when you peel back the layers, some of that falls on Howie Roseman. Nobody's denying he's one of the best general managers in football. He built 2 Super Bowl rosters in the span of 5 years. But even great GMs have off-seasons that miss the mark, and this one might be Howie's. He let veteran leaders walk, Darius Slay, Josh Sweat, Mekhi Becton, and the replacements haven't lived up. The decision to trade C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the emotional spark of the defense, stripped the unit of its edge. And while it's easy to say those were business decisions, it's harder to justify them when the on-field product looks flat and uninspired. That edge, that swagger, is gone. You can see it on every snap. In 2024, the Eagles played with a fury that made teams dread facing them. They didn't just win, they broke their opponent's will. Now, they look like the ones being broken. Jalen Hurts bears some of that responsibility too. He's not the same quarterback who shredded defenses last season and earned Super Bowl MVP honors. His deep ball accuracy has plummeted, 10-for-28 on throws over 10 yards, with a passer rating of just 4.8. He's missing open reads, holding onto the ball too long, and second-guessing himself in the pocket. Maybe it's a trust issue. Maybe it's the new system. Maybe it's pressure from all sides. But whatever it is, the timing between Hurts and his receivers is off. DeVonta Smith has been visibly frustrated. A.J. Brown has been caught loafing on routes. That's not chemistry, that's disconnection. The worst part? The problems feel familiar. They feel like 2023 all over again, a team that started hot, looked unbeatable, then unraveled when adversity struck. That version of the Eagles lost 6 of their final 7 games after starting 10-1. And right now, if they don't change something fast, history might repeat itself. But here's the thing about football, identity isn't permanent. It can be rebuilt. It can be rediscovered. It starts with accountability. Nick Sirianni has to demand it. From Hurts, from Patullo, from every man in that locker room. The Eagles can't keep saying we're close or we just need to execute. They've been saying that for weeks. At some point, it's not about being close. It's about being honest. They need urgency. They need anger. They need the fight that defined them in 2022 and 2024. Because right now, this doesn't look like the Philadelphia Eagles. It looks like a talented team without direction, and in the NFL, that's a dangerous place to be. The Vikings await next week, and it's not just another game. It's a crossroads, a chance to prove that this team still has heart, or a sign that the spiral has truly begun. So I'll ask you, Eagles fans, is this just a rough patch, or are we watching something deeper unravel? And if you believe this team can bounce back, what needs to change first? Let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you want more Eagles talk like this every week, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and stick around. We've got plenty more coverage coming your way, right here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. Because here's the truth, this stretch right now will define who the 2025 Philadelphia Eagles really are. Every season has that moment where you either respond like contenders or collapse like pretenders. For this team, that moment is right now. The excuses have run out. The championship hangover narrative doesn't fly anymore. Injuries? Every team deals with them. New offensive coordinator? Sure, but the same core players who won a Super Bowl less than a year ago are still on this roster. What's missing isn't talent. It's urgency. It's accountability. It's leadership. And that starts at the top. Nick Sirianni has done a phenomenal job building a culture of confidence and connection since he arrived in Philadelphia. But even great cultures need